You might get a question, check that user with such name exists in array of object. Obviously it can be not name or not user, but the idea is that you need to check a property of the object inside an array. And actually there are different ways to implement this, and the worst way possible is by using for loop. Because as I said previously, for loop is super low level and it is not a right tool for this specific task. So let's look how it looks like with for loop. So here we want to create a function, for example isNameExists, and here we must pass two arguments. First of all it's a name, and secondly it is an array of our users. Now inside we must create a property which will be boolean, and it will show us that we have this user inside an array. So here we can make a let exists, and by default it will be false. Now we must write a for loop, so here we have our let I from 0 and I less than user's length, and here we are making I++. Now what we want to do inside, for every single element we must check its name. This is why here we are checking users I.name equals our name, and if it equals, then we want to assign inside exist true. After our for loop we want to return our exist property. So yes, this code will work, let's check this out, but it is super low level. As you can see, we have for example name John. Let's write here John and here comma our users. As you can see, we are getting true because we have such user with such name inside array. If I'm writing here just foo, we are getting false. But the problem with this code, it won't show that you are an advanced developer. This is why I want to show you three other possibilities to write this code, and actually all these three possibilities are okayish. My favorite will be a single liner here, so we can create a function isNameExists, and here we are getting name and array. And as you can see here, I didn't write users but array, because now we can use this function on any data. And now what I want to call here is array.sum, and if you don't know what sum is doing, you can call sum on array and give inside some predicate, so you want to check something inside. In our case, sum will return us true if we have at least one single element which fulfills our condition. So inside sum we can write element, and we want to check here element name equals our name that we passed inside. And this is literally the same code like we wrote here, but much smaller. Let's check this out. I'm reloading page and I'm just typing isNameExists. As you can see, we're getting true. So actually sum is the best solution to this question, but it is also possible to use other solutions. So let's comment this out and try again. We have here again two arguments, name and array. Now inside we can try and find element with such name. This is why here let's create an element, and we're using here array.find. We're getting our element, and here we want to check element.name equals our name from the top. But in this case our element is actually an object, it's not a boolean. This is why here we must wrap our element in boolean to return boolean and not an object. In this case it will work correctly. I'm reloading the page. As you can see, it is working exactly like this. So the main difference is that we must write a little bit more code because we must convert it to boolean. And the last thing that we can use here is actually not find but find index. And if you don't know what find index is doing, is exactly the same logic, but we are finding the index of this element. So if we can find the object with such name inside our array, so here we are not getting our element but an index. And after this we know that if this index is less than 0, then this item was not found. So here we can write return index bigger than 0. In this case we know, okay, it is bigger than 0, we have this element inside array. And as you can see, this code is working exactly the same. So my approach would be sum, the next approach will be find index. Find is also okay, but you should not use for loop because it is highly inefficient for such task.